Well, Caty, thanks so much for joining me. So my name is Brian Griffin. I'm a VP of Brand Solutions at VideoAmp. We're a cross-screen measurement and attribution company. Really, most recently being kind of an agent of change in an industry that has not really evolved much in the last 40 years.
What did your mom do?
She thinks that's what I did. Yeah, she doesn't get what it means, but then she thinks, that's what I did. So Caty, thanks so much for joining me. And I just want to say this before we really dive into this, or the questions that we brought to you today. But you probably grew a massive fan base yesterday during the women's panel. I would say that. I really enjoyed that session. But thank you for bringing so much of your energy to that session. So why don't we look back a little bit, right? You've been at the CW for 16 years. You've had quite the run there. Let's look back. Let's understand that story, and then we'll look forward.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. Something that was haunting me last night when I saw pictures online of our panel from yesterday was the fact that we're not inside the clubhouse. We're still locked out. We're locked out. Members only. It's behind that door. I don't know. Just think about it. Okay? Just think about it. So, hi there. I was born in Hartford, Connecticut. Cold. No, it was. I am from Connecticut. That is true. From Manchester, outside of Hartford. I sort of always loved photography. My mother, when I was like 9, gave me a black and white TV, the good old-fashioned ones, and I had it in my room. And at the time, I was like, "Why is she giving me this?" And then I was like, "Because I now have the power over time and space. I can it had like a little earbud, and I could watch late at night." So when I was coming of age, when I graduated from college, and I made the decision to move out to Los Angeles, it was to get into the entertainment business. I loved TV, I loved movies, I loved all of it. And so, I know a lot of people are marketers who work on a TV account or marketers who work on a streaming account. I'm really I'm a TV person who ended up in marketing. And it's sort of a very circuitous route to get there. I did a lot of sort of whatever jobs I could get. When I first got out of school, I worked as a temp, and I had some really crazy temp assignments at Tiffany's in Beverly Hills. I was the receptionist. Good morning, Tiffany in Beverly Hills.
Blue Box.
Yes, Blue Box. I worked at a concrete company. I worked then for years in documentary and what in that moment became reality programming. So I was writing and producing shows for Discovery Channel. And now Discovery's about to buy one of our parent companies or merge with one of our parent companies because there's apparently meant to only be 3 companies in the world. I thought it was going to end with a phone company. I really did. I thought it was always going to end with 4 phone companies. Yeah. And then I sort of got sick of real people and being out in the field and interviewing people. I worked on a bunch of shows about custom motorcycle builders, which was super interesting. But also being in every small town in the country, talking to guys in motorcycle shops it wore on me a little bit. So I wanted to really sort of be in a happier place, in a cleaner, sort of more, heart place. So I got into advertising. But I went back to temping, and I got a temp assignment at the WB. Back in the day, it was a 2-week assignment. Someone's assistant had quit while they were out on maternity leave, and I just was there to answer the phones till she came back. And then I stayed. I just sort of barnacled in, and I read every piece of paper I saw, and I was like, well, who knew? Who knew that there's a person who chooses every billboard, or that I know all the radio stations in where I grew up, and I know all the radio stations where I live now, but wow, to think that someone has to go through and figure out what those radio stations are in every market. And it was just wow, that is super cool. And I was always a fan of the WB. It started right after I graduated from college, so I was already too old for it, but I loved it, and was so happy to be able to sort of get a job in TV. And I just sort of read everything I could, and then it was announced one day I was driving to work, and I heard KCRW, which is the public radio station in LA. I heard that WB and UPN were merging on my way to work, and I was like, oh, do I take this turn? Do I go to the office? Do I pull over? Do I have to figure out where UPN is? And I stayed through the merger, and it was, as all corporate mergers are, it was a bloodbath. So what had been a department of 10 people became a department of 3 people, eventually a department of 2 people. And because I was lowest on the totem pole and cheap, just to be completely blunt, I got to stick around. And so from there, then sort of climbed my way up till I was running the department and taking over some more responsibilities in other parts of the marketing function. And I love TV. I love getting people connected to a show they want to watch. Back in the day, Doonesbury did a cartoon, and I have this photo up on the wall in my office that I haven't seen in 2 years. But it's these 2 characters talking about they're trying to get to this thing about some refugee crisis, and there's should we make placards tonight? And it's such an important thing. We got to do this now. And the girl's like, well, no, I can't. I'm busy. And I said, well, what could you possibly be doing that's more important than this? And she's like, watching Gossip Girl. Some things are sacred. Right, so.
I started my career at FX, and same thing, didn't realize how much went into everything that happens to run the network and partner with all these brands and integrate all the products into the show and screen the content. And when you're a part of that, you naturally become such a fan of the programming because you see what goes on behind it to bring it to life.
And I would take this moment to say, every little bit of every show is important, as it is every movie, and it's wrong for the Oscars to not be airing the craft categories. I will die on that hill. They should be, like, the makeup artists make some of these movies.
Yeah.
They should be. Yeah. And I understand they're going to air it, but they're going to give it away in an empty auditorium instead of like Meryl Streep there crying, like, yeah, she did make me look beautiful. So.
Not enough appreciation. So let's look to the now. There's this thing called the upfront that has occurred forever. It hasn't really occurred in the social sense the last few years. That said, CW is going to have an in-person event this year. Can you talk a little bit about that? How your participation in that, how that whole strategy is coming together?
Well, certainly. So, we are, and I would say this to anyone who got a hold of me in a cold call. It's a lot harder to do now because it's easier to ignore LinkedIn than a ringing telephone. But anyone who gets a hold of me right now, here's what I'll say. We're in that awkward in-between stage at this moment where, we're out shooting pilots and we don't know what's going to go to series. And so we also don't know what we're going to pick up. So you tell me all about your exciting offering about delivering video at scale. And then when we do know something, I'll get back to you. But we are in that awkward, it's how I am able to come here right now, is that we're not crazy busy planning. So we are looking forward to having an in-person event in May to announce whatever our fall schedule is going to look like. It is let's use the word exciting time for the business. One of our parent companies, Warner Brothers, is going through a massive change with the Discovery merger. Another one of our parent companies is CBS, so they're sort of having their whole Paramount thing, and they're putting this up for adoption. So we are also sort of like getting our tires kicked right now, so it's not awkward at all.
I'm glad that you're kind of stating the obvious.
Yeah, but no, we're excited to have it. But back to the actual question, we're excited to have an in-person event. We're excited to see people and really sort of dig in and show what we can do. And For years, the highlight of the CW upfront, if you ever got to go to New York, is just the parade of the most attractive people you've ever seen in your life. And they just flood the stage, and you're like, how is this possible? America is great. Where do I sign?
Yeah, I mean, the community aspect is tremendous. And we're seeing that all here today.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much optimism and positivity about that. So we're looking forward to seeing that again descend on New York City. Let's pivot slightly. Let's talk a little bit about audience attention, how you're building a strategy about that idea, how you're tailoring your media strategy, how that's evolved as the social component of our country has changed a little bit. Let's talk about that.
Certainly. So, we are at our base a broadcast network, right? So 7 days a week now for 2 hours a night, we put TV on, and you can pick up, the biggest, dumbest box that plugs into the wall in your house can pick up our signal. And that's what we are at our core. But we, from very early on, we're hybrid, and we were streaming our shows from the get-go. I remember we ran a preview of the pilot episode of Supernatural. We did a whole deal with Yahoo to stream the premiere, and I think maybe 3 people finished it because it was such a buggy, like dial-up kind of thing. But we have understood that the computer is a place where people were going to be getting their content, and so we have always had a philosophy of making sure we were meeting our audience where they were and making our shows available wherever audience was, instead of sort of this demand to come watch at this time on this box in your house. And honestly, it was an uphill battle for the first few years. Our parent companies were like, well, why are you streaming? It's ruining your overnight ratings. The Nielsen ratings are terrible. So they actually had us take Gossip Girl off streaming. And what we learned is that the target audience for Gossip Girl knows how to pirate, right? Like, we taught a generation of people how to steal TV. And then we were able to get it streaming at the right time. But so we've always tried to do that, and we've always tried to do that then with our advertising or our brand messaging around it. So, we went from like at the WB when we launched Supernatural, the digital plan was an AOL instant messenger takeover, and then when we got to the CW, it was a MySpace takeover, and so now we spend a ton on TV and cable and broadcast, and that's full episode players, that's all kinds of streaming. But the second highest category of our spend is in original, because that's just where people are, and especially in the last 2 years, right? Especially in the last 2 years. And so we experimented with some virtual events. We did, Complex Lands. Complex Land is their virtual one. We did a summit with Team Vogue that was all digital, and those were great experiences because that was the best way to be able to get our hands on people. But as sort of things open back up, I'm a metaverse kind of girl. I think that like the opportunity and the options for that are great, but when people come to me and say, I've got the greatest billboard in the world, it's just like Blade Runner, or it's gonna be so cool, it's just like Ready Player One, I'm like, those were dystopias. Those were horrible visions of the future. You don't want to live in Minority Report, right? Like, these are not good for humans and other living things. So I think it's great to have all this technology to be able to play with, but I don't think it's a place we necessarily want to live in. And so we, now that the world is opening up a bit, we, obviously I'm here, but we also are doing, we're getting more into outdoor. We're doing some more light in-person events, light sort of touches with being meeting our fans in the real world. I mean, print's gone forever, sadly, I think. And Although if you have a newspaper today, you can see an ad for the Critics' Choice Awards tonight live on CW. It's so important to pay attention to where our viewers are and to get in.
Yeah. And how has DEI played a role in some of that?
Well, we are very proud of the diversity of the talent, both on camera and behind the camera that our shows have. You know, I think like any organization, we had to take a minute and be like, okay, that's great that we, you know, have however X number of female showrunners. We have Y number of Pacific Islanders. We have the first trans superhero. Like that's all good and well and wonderful that our programming does that. But I think like most organizations, we have to take a minute and, you know, like turn the mirror on ourselves and take a look at what our actual internal groups look like and figure out if they look like the world should look. I think that it's difficult and it's an ongoing process. And I know I have encountered some people who are like, well, we hired 3 Black guys, we're done. And I'm like, well, no, that's not what this is about. And it's not just about like being able to point that you hired 3 Black guys. It's about making sure that your whole staff and your whole organization is working together in a way that's diverse, equitable, and inclusive, right? So like, I think, you know, I'm an intersectional feminist at core, right? Like, I think you can't take race apart from gender, apart from class, apart from even regionalism sometimes, right? And so it's an ongoing process for us to be able to make sure that we're doing the right things all the time. And, you know, I think I'm glad that a lot of folks and a lot of organizations have woken up to sort of like the real lived experience of people. And on that note, this is my pitch. If you go to my LinkedIn page, you can see a link to an article, I think on Elite Daily, that lists like 10 organizations that you guys can donate to that help trans youth here in Texas. Because I had a lot of dark night of the soul deciding whether I could come here and spend my money. So that's important. Planned Parenthood also always a good thing here in Texas. So yes, I think as our organization is attacking DEI in a lot of different ways, I think it's also important for all of us to always sort of as individuals sort of understand our own place in a system that perpetuates a lot of that, right? I had this conversation last night sitting at the Four Seasons, but it's true. You know, we are really lucky to be in the business we're in. We are really lucky to be able to shape culture.
Yeah. It's clear you're not going to be investing in the metaverse anytime soon, potentially, but who knows? But let's talk about other channels that emerged, you know, a few years ago, like TikTok and influencer marketing. How is strategy being shaped around that?
I mean, I think all that stuff is super fun, and I think you gotta be where the kids are at. You can't do the like Steve Buscemi, hey fellow kids of it. You know, you have to sort of do. I think that's what the best influencer programs can be authentic, right? They can be a person of the community talking to their community. I am dying now. I almost wish that I worked in beverage because I recently discovered on TikTok there's this German guy who reviews water, and he goes to like CVS and he opens all the he's like this is filtered, this is garbage, this is just filtered bad water, this is garbage, this is good, this is single source, you can drink this. And he goes through every water at the CVS. And someone sent me one this morning, and he was trying to find out the mineral content of Topo Chico. But you know, like I think we found since the dawn of the internet, if you have an idea or a thought in a pretty little head, there are people making TikToks about it. There are people, having conversations about it on Reddit. There are people starting private Facebook groups about it. So anything that you think is interesting, you can find a community for it online, and that's really exciting. And it's really daunting then to as a marketer to try to be like, but also tonight, 8 o'clock. It's daunting to get sort of very authentic messages into that stream.
Right, yeah. What advice would you give to advertisers who are trying to like kind of break that and make sure that they're not just focusing on clicks, they're appreciating the completion of a message and the fact that there's a human and a consumer behind that?
I mean, I think that's the real thing, right? Like what we are trying to do at the CW is tell human stories to humans, or tell vampire stories to humans. But when we want to connect and sort of get across what we have to offer, we're not offering it to a flavor cluster. Excuse me. We're offering it to someone who could see something of their own in that story, who you can sort of meet and meet. I think that targeting is really interesting. I think it can be a really great layer on top. Like when we do programmatic, we do it. We do a private marketplace because there's 200 sites that I would love to buy a program with that I can't, and so I can layer over and get some of the messages there. But that's not how we start. We really start with contextual relevance on anything we do and try to make sure that we're in a place that can help foster a human connection, whether that is, running table spots in a show that we know is like our show, or it's making sure that we have subway ads in New York because we know that our consumers are riding the subway, they're not in town cars outside of Black Rock. Right. That's where our consumers are. Yeah. I had a boss who at one point was like, I haven't seen any ads for our shows. All I see is The Good Wife. All I see is The Good Wife. I'm like, because you're the target for The Good Wife.
Before we open up to questions, what's a favorite campaign that you worked on that helped launch a show or a program?
Favorite campaign. Well, right now, we just a couple months ago we launched a show called Naomi. It is a show about Black girl in the Pacific Northwest who is obsessed with Superman. She runs the #3 Superman fan site. If you know anything about fan sites, like only Brazil is ahead of it, right? Because Brazil has crazy fandom. If you don't know that, look into it. It's wild. But so she one day finds out that she herself is a superhero. And so it's this great sort of meta thing where she loves superhero characters, but then it turns out she finds out that they're real and that she's one of them. And it's just a really charming coming of age story. It's produced by Ava DuVernay, who is just like flawless. Like also flawless in her specific understanding and direction of every bit of the show, which I found invigorating to work for someone who's just so focused on nailing it. And so what we were able to do on that show is really change the map of where we were concentrating our efforts. We do, we're self-involved like most people in entertainment, so we tend to like buy a bunch of billboards in Hollywood and make sure that like you can see it in the shows that you watch, or you put a bus shelter at the end of the producer's street. We didn't do that on this. We really dug in and made sure that we were getting the messages out to the communities and in the markets where we thought it could be the most good. We were able to also, one of the things about Naomi, and it's in the key art, she's a skateboarder. So we were able to like do we did a mural near the skate park in Venice, California, which is huge. And so we had like just having a camera there, just saw skateboarders driving and stopping and looking and skating off. You know, and I think it's important on anything you do nowadays. And you know, I have weirdly talked a lot about outdoor, and you do not spend that much money there. But what's great is when you can make it bigger than that moment in Venice and have a video of it and have it shared and have Ava share it. And Ava actually went and on her Instagram stories with Casey Walfall to start, and we went to a bunch of different placements and like was like, can you believe, look at how huge you are, we're doing this thing. And it was wonderful to have a campaign delivered to the exact right audience in the right way and have it have legs to get other places. And that's just, you know, like this year or something I'm super excited about.
The way that you play that sounds really authentic, right? So, open it up to questions. Yeah. All right, who's got questions? Somebody, don't be shy. Don't be shy. Of all this amazing stuff that she has shared with us, come on, somebody got a question.
I've got a question. All right. How many of you are in sales? Hands. Okay. How many of you are at an agency? How many of you wandered in off the street? Awesome. Awesome. It's so nice that they had to, they had to write it on, didn't they? Yeah.
How many want to get behind that door? All of us.
Yeah.
All right, you get the final question. Everybody has a question. Oh, somebody is good. All right. Let me get back there. Hang on, let me get back there.
Thank you, Katy. You know, TV is traditionally been, those of us who've been in TV for a while, I started my career at FX and National Geographic, has been a boys club. And I know you could probably speak to that quite intimately or experience. In terms of you breaking down walls and transitioning from intent to actually running a department, what has always been your perspective as a woman, you know, literally trying to break down those walls, also kind of feeling a little bit, you know, I think sometimes when you get the sense that you're sort of an outsider sometimes, right? When you start, you see people who've been in TV, you know, they know everybody else, and you're kind of coming in from the ground level. How have you been able to, you know, kind of progress?
Well, I think a couple things. First of all, I think it's best to assume a Kool-Aid man-like posture and run towards the building. That's how I broke it. But what I think is important is, you know, I was a temp and I read everything that crossed my page. I wasn't like, okay, I'm here for 8 hours and then I need to go home and do the other thing that I'm trying to do. It is, you know, to me, like anyone who moves to Los Angeles who's, you know, uncle isn't a staff writer on Family Guy, I say, temp, right? Like it's a way to start to meet people, right? Because it can be a club and that's a way you can meet people. I also am a big sort of try again person. You know, I got rejected out of my first choice college out of high school, and then I transferred in, and that's where I graduated from. I think that as far as it being an old boys club, I think that first of all, working at networks that were a lot about like teen dramas made that a little less of a boys club, or at least not necessarily like a straight white boys club. And so different kind of boys club. And also I think in my experience, media itself, right? Like media planning and buying skews a lot more female than a lot of other parts of the business. And so, you know, I try to get as much as I can out of the people that I work with, and I also try to offer as much as I can to the people that I work with at whatever level, because at some point down the road, the kid who was the assistant at my agency is gonna like be running TikTok, right? Or whatever TikTok is, the thing that she'll invent. So that's my advice about getting in and growing.
Y'all give it up for Katy. Brian, good job.